Welcome in, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. In this episode, I'd like to offer a guided meditation on allowing within awareness or allowing within centeredness. Another way to think of this is learning to open within our meditation rather than block. Just a quick story here. When I was beginning meditation, I thought, as do many, students I come across since I've been a meditation teacher, that in order to have a good meditation, I need to block all other things going on, and especially my thoughts. For me, this was, it went from more gross, like, literally trying to do that, to more subtle, where every time a thought would come, I would get upset, or, there'd be this kind of internal dialogue of that I'm doing it wrong, or, something's going wrong in the practice. At the end of practice, if I had a lot of thoughts, it meant I didn't have a successful meditation. And I just wanted to share with you, after, of course, many more years of practice and Dharma study, I don't believe that anymore. I think that's actually not only a false narrative, I think it's actually harmful for growing a long-term sustainable meditation practice. So what do we do instead? So what we do instead, of course, we need to find some groundedness and an ability to be in the present moment. But, in one of my previous videos, I talked about finding more joy in meditation. And one of those key points there was really letting go of short-term expectations in the beginning. Just try your best, show up. Don't fight what's going on too much. You just put energy into continually coming back to a non-judgmental mindfulness or non-judgmental present moment awareness. You just center that, right? So aside from that, when we develop some strength of awareness, when we're meditating for a few years and we start to connect with a sense of groundedness, then what we want to do is to start to introduce more allowing into the practice, allowing thoughts to arise. So we're not just stuck in stillness. We're not sort of attached to that or trying to cling to some kind of stillness. We're open to movement. That includes sounds around us. When we meditate with our eyes open, it includes what we see in front of us. And I can't describe how beneficial this is. It really allows life to become meditation, if I'm to put it, if I'm going to put it in a simple way. So I thought to guide something for meditators who maybe aren't used to this kind of practice, where maybe you're struggling with thoughts. Like I said, for you, it feels like a good meditation when there's less thinking, or when you're kind of in the zone, or whatever we want to call it. And then when you have thoughts, it feels like you're not doing it right, or something like that. So I wanted to introduce some techniques you can apply to start to introduce allowing. I recommend doing this in short moments. So instead of trying to extend into a longer 20 or 30-minute meditation, just take 2 or 3 minute increments of allowing, right? And so what this does is it takes the pressure off of having to be perfect at it or having to be good at it right away. And you just do it, and you treat it more as a practice, right? So with that said, go ahead and find a posture that works for you. If you're in a chair, you want to scoot to the front of the chair and maybe put something under you to feel supported. And the main thing is we want our back to be upright, but we also want to feel relaxed. Shoulders back and down. You can put your palms on your knees if you want, or if you know some other postures of meditation, that's fine. If you want to sit cross-legged on the floor, that's also great. And if you'd like to close your eyes, you can. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit to really allow all sense perceptions, as well as, the mind, to do what it will, you can also just lower your gaze a little bit. You'll see me do that in this meditation. And you can also alternate, eyes closed, eyes open. So just taking a few moments to find our breath, just beginning to come inwards, connecting with the inhalation, feeling the breath either at the tip of the nose, or you can center as your anchor of practice the expansion and contraction of the chest and abdomen. Over time, if you're not used to connecting with the feeling of the breath, over time, I recommend you try to get used to that. If you're used to kind of counting the breath, or silently thinking in and out. That's fine. But see if you can connect with the feeling, either at the tip of the nose or, like I said, the expansion of the chest and abdomen. So we might first start with bringing a little bit of attention and focus to this anchor of the breath. And widening that circle of what we're aware of, what we're watchful of, we then allow sounds to be included, but we're not losing this attention to breath. So awareness itself can be aware of many things. We don't have to limit awareness. And when we lose awareness, see if you can return to it. Maybe return first to your anchor of the breath, and then connect to this sense of watchfulness in the mind. If you don't know what I mean by awareness, you can go listen or watch one of my previous episodes talking about meditative awareness. And so we begin to widen this circle to sounds, just allowing sounds to arise and fall. We don't have to reflect or think about them or know exactly what they are. They're just allowed to arise within consciousness and fall within consciousness. Same goes for any sensations other than the breath, including the breath. Any smells, tastes, and of course, anything that is passing through our visual field if we've chosen to keep our eyes open during the practice. And so we allow life to happen, but we stay aware. So awareness is like water in that whatever you move through it, the water can take on the color or aspect of what merges with it, but the water itself doesn't become the color or aspect. So if you pour some food coloring into water, it colors the water, but the nature of the water remains the same. It's the same with awareness. And awareness has this quality of watchfulness that we're centering here. So we're just watching our experience. We're watching sounds, sights, smells, tastes, and sensations arise and fall. Maybe we're even beginning to allow thoughts to arise and fall, and see if you can do that without losing awareness. There's a sense of watchfulness, there's a sense of observation, but not a coldness. There's a warmth there. If you need to just come back to this anchor of the breath, like I said, you can do this in also 1 or 2 or 3 minute increments. Just take little mini breaks, come back to the breath, and then open. An analogy I like to use is this is a lot like the aperture on a camera that can let in more or less light. So maybe you're letting in a little bit of light at first, and then you allow that to expand, letting in more and more of your experience. So if we're staying with this anchor of the breath, it's a very light anchor. We're not so focused in like a laser. We're allowing breath to happen just as we're allowing all the phenomena around us to happen, including thoughts. And we just allow things to move through. They want to spend some time with us, a certain sound, emotion, or thought, we allow it. But we also allow it to cease or leave if it wants to. So we're finding a little bit more fluidity within our training of awareness here. We can rest in stillness if we choose to, and we can also allow movement eventually. And if we lose track of awareness and become distracted by one thought after another, just recognize that and come back. Again, you can come back to your anchor of the breath and body, and then connect to this sense of watchfulness in the mind. So there's always a lightness here. One thing we often have to remind ourselves is this is a practice, which means we're not going to be perfect at it. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to practice it. So of course, we're going to get distracted. So there's a lightness, there's a compassion, there's a patience with distraction. And more, if you can emphasize this sense of being with awareness, being with the present moment and whatever's arising and falling within it. The more you can emphasize that, the more there's this sense of fluidity. But we're with that fluidity. We're not distracted, trying to be in the next moment or clinging to the past. Just allowing with awareness. Before we close the practice, just returning to the breath and body if you need to. You can also just pause the episode here and continue if you want to go longer or replay it. And if you've been mostly closing your eyes during this practice, see if you can fully open them now and just gently allow yourself to take in what's around you without losing the practice. So maybe just looking around the room, staying in the body if you can. So now there's actual physical movement in the practice. See if you can preserve this meditative awareness, even while looking around or starting to move the body a little bit. So thank you so much for joining me for this practice. I hope it was helpful for you. As always, I really welcome feedback, so please let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, feel free to reach out at scotttusa.com. I always like hearing from you. And if you want more guided meditations from me, there's also a link to that on my website. Thanks so much. Wishing you all the best.